Don't make these mistakes when you're teaching the letter of the week. One mistake is focusing on the letter name instead of the letter sound. The sound will help your reader progress towards reading much faster, build their confidence and motivation for reading, whereas if you do the name first, they kind of don't know how to connect it to what they're doing. They don't know how to connect it to reading quite yet, and so it really slows the pace of them learning how to read. It's not unforgivable, just slows the pace. As a former preschool teacher, I've fallen for this before, where we plan too many activities and don't connect the letter enough with the symbol. So if the letter of the week is A and we decide to do a lot of things with apples and we have apple cores and apple hunts and do this whole apple thing, well, now the kid's thinking the week is all about apples or about alligators or about apricots, and they're not thinking that it's about the letter A and what sound the A makes. Another mistake is teaching the letter of the week in alphabetical order. So maybe your first letter of the week is A, and then you do B, and then C, and then D. This is a problem because, again, we're trying to encourage children to read, and so you need to use the most common letters first that they see when they're reading the most, and then you use the least common ones last. M, A, T, and S are some of the more common letters that you see right off the bat. Some of the more least common ones are Q, Z, X, right? And even though it's semi-alphabetical, you still don't want to miss some of those. Like S, for instance, is on the latter end of the alphabet and is one of the more common letters used. Hopefully with your letter of the weeks, you're building each week upon each other. So you start with the letter A, for example, and then next week you have the letter M, then you start combining it to am, right? So you don't forget the one letter and go to the next letter of the week. You use each letter of the week and keep building until by the time you're done all the letter of the weeks, they've reviewed the first one a lot and the last one, maybe not as much, but now they're able to read because you've been building on each of these letters. And of course, they'll have plenty of time to review letters like Q later. We're just trying to get children started on reading as soon as possible. And Q is one of those letters that's not used very much in the English language. Something you can do with your letters of the week is have a sound basket. This is one of the activities I recommend in my freebie where I talk about 12 low prep activities you can do to start your kid on their reading journey. They can be habits, they can be everyday activities. So you can have this sound basket and go through it with your child and really explore the sounds and have them even guess the sound of the letter of the week if you'd like. Link to the freebie in the description. Another mistake about letters of the week is only teaching the letter of the week. As you're doing the letter of the week, you want to incorporate other reading practices into that letter of the week. For instance, if you're running a preschool classroom or even if you're just at home and you say, oh, A is for apple, apple, and maybe you jump to the syllables, apple. Well, that jump to the syllables helps them learn syllables and helps them with decoding. You want to write that letter A in the air. Go ah. So you're including writing in your letter of the week. Try to incorporate as many reading things as you can into your letter of the week. Even reading a letter A book. You can learn a lot about print awareness while also focusing on that letter of the week. And you can tie all that into helping your child read better. Another mistake is only having the letter of the week at the front of the word, right? We want to talk about that letter of the week being in the middle of the word, at the end of a word, right? And as you're jumping and decoding the words, as you're doing different things, you can have that letter in the middle, at the end, wherever. It doesn't have to be in the beginning. And I think that's important for children to be able to practice and listen to, especially if you're teaching mixed ages. If you're in a classroom with multiple different people at different levels, then you want to have them not only practice the beginning sound, which is easier for beginner readers to hear, but you also want to do middle and end. So it's useful for all sorts of readers, but especially if you have mixed ages and different levels. But definitely include and don't exclude words that have that letter that are just not at the beginning. Include all words that have the letter. Definitely make sure that you're still reading books as you're doing your letter of the week and that you are still having fun, right? We still want to incorporate activities. Let's say you did want to do that apple activity where you're dissecting the cores and going through science and talking about seeds and trees and all those things with your letter of the week A, right? You can do all those things. You can and should really have fun with the letter. Just make sure that you are combining those fun activities with associating the sound with the symbol, right? Children need to see it written down. They need to practice reading. This symbol means this sound, right? This letter means this sound. If they're not practicing it, they're not going to get it. The last thing I'll say is consistency. So there have been times where in kindergarten classrooms, I've seen children as they check in, they have to write their names when they check into the classroom. And every day the children are writing their names. And by the end of the year, they actually get pretty good at writing their names because they're practicing every day. With our letter of the weeks, it should be similar in the sense that every day we should be practicing writing that letter, reading that letter. It shouldn't just be a one-day event where we talk about the letter and then that's it for the week and we just say it's a letter of the week. We need to have stuff planned that we can repeat it every day in a fun and enjoyable way. So this is my list of things that you should not do when doing letters of the week, but also some tips on what you can do instead. Please put in the comments your experiences with Letter of the Week and subscribe to get more videos. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.